Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies. Make sure you check them out at rcandt.com and also by Manscaped. You use the promo code TG20 to make your balls happy, little campers. All right, guys. Right now, I am your host, Mike Goodpaster, and of course, we have our blushing co-host, Sam Teets, who gets worried every time I start to talk about Manscaped. And the deal starts November the 1st, where we'll start promoting them more. So I would say worry more once we get to the first of the month.
All right, Michael, I'll be ready. I'll come prepared.
And you're going to have to play along too, Sam. You just can't sit there and blush.
All right,
let's start off last night. The Philadelphia Eagles put themselves firmly in control of the NFC East, running their record to 2 wins. Unfortunately, we're almost halfway through the season. Sam, what do you think? Giants, Eagles. Carson Wentz made a great throw at the end of the game. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, he had a couple of good throws throughout the game. My biggest issue with Carson Wentz is he's trying to play too much hero ball right now. Maybe that's because he lost his security blanket. Zach Ertz is hurt. Dallas Goedert's been hurt basically since week 1 or week 2. So my issue with him is he's trying too hard and he's making mistakes when he's trying to do that. On the other hand, Daniel Jones fumbles at the end of the game. What else is new? The Giants really had a good chance to win this game, and the Eagles came out and they clutched it up, which is what I expect them to do throughout the season.
Well, I would say the way I don't think it was just a fumble by Daniel Jones. I think it was more of an offensive line breakdown, and he got smacked in the back. I think it's more acceptable, this fumble, than most of Daniel Jones's fumbles. But when you look at this, I mean, you could say, well, how can you favor the Eagles? They barely beat the Giants. The Cowboys barely beat the Giants. The Redskins beat the Eagles. I mean, this division's a mess, and nobody here is coming out of this alive.
No, it's terrible. I think the only saving grace for a lot of these teams is that they have coaches who are in their first seasons. And maybe that's the only thing that's going to save some of these organizations going forward. I mean, the only team with a returning head coach is Philadelphia. So we're going to see a lot of these guys come back next year, and who knows, it's going to be the same thing all over again.
Yeah, and that's all we need to say about the NFC East. Let's go ahead and preview and predict. Who won our prediction thing last week, Sam?
You did. I had a really bad week. You definitely.
Yeah.
I know you beat me. I think you went even. I'm pretty sure.
Even?
I'll pull it up right now. But I did bad. I did pretty bad.
All right, so I smoked you again. All right, so let's look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, your team, against the Tennessee Titans. I think it's kind of disarming to realize coming into this matchup that Ryan Tannehill is the better quarterback. And hell, let's get to the point. Ryan Tannehill is almost a better quarterback in every matchup the Tennessee Titans will play now. And while he's kept up an insane efficiency on play action and in the red zone, Tannehill's biggest ability to me has been able to avoid sacks, throw against pressure, and be productive on straight dropbacks. And I think it's safe to say, even with Josh Allen being thrown in the equation, no quarterback has improved over the last couple of years than Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, part of me wonders if the changing coaching staffs obviously helped out. Part of me wonders if the injuries prevented us from seeing the full potential of Tannehill during his final years in Miami because he was hurt so often. But really, he came in here and he's been elite since he started picking up in place of Marcus Mariota this past year. Now he's arguably the number 2 quarterback, maybe even the number 1 if you overlook Russell Wilson in the entire league at this point. Tennessee Titans have a serious advantage on offense because they have Tannehill. They have Derrick Henry, the best duo in football right now offensively. I'm still taking Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's strengths play well against Tennessee's strengths offensively. I think Pittsburgh will be able to stuff Derrick Henry, and then we'll be able to focus and eliminate Ryan Tannehill in the passing game.
I think this is a game where the winner, to me, may be the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the game, you're going to have to go with that because you got 2 undefeated teams here facing off against here. The only 2 undefeated teams left in the AFC. And maybe outside of them, the best team probably be Kansas City, who had lost to the Raiders. So this is potentially determining who the best team in the AFC is moving forward. I would agree with you.
All right, I'm going to go with the Titans. I think Tannehill's just playing too well right now. I think they're going to put up points. I think the Steelers will put up points. The Steelers have a great defense. They got so many guys that are double-team worthy. It's hard to double-team them all. But I think the way Tannehill's playing with Derrick Henry, I think Tennessee wins this in a close game, but I think it could go either way. Next up, another one of those titanic clashes in the NFC East. Kyle Allen taketh away. His fumble produced the Giants' go-ahead touchdown last week. Then he led an impressive touchdown drive to get within a point, only to hesitate on a failed two-point conversion that cost the team a win. Overall, the Washington offense, I think it's safe, looked better with Kyle Allen at the controls, and its defense has performed like a top 10 unit all year long. And I don't want to overreact to the Cowboys' Monday night debacle, but their injury problems and league worst turnovers and takeaways are year-long trends. I think the Washington football team wins this game.
Really going with Washington? I'm going to go with Dallas in this one. I think the Cowboys are too talented to screw this up somehow. I think they have enough offensively with Andy Dalton there. Even with that bad offensive line, I think they'll adjust, and I believe they'll be able to put more points than Washington can match.
Yeah, but a bad offensive line against the Washington defense, especially their defensive line, I think just makes for a long day for Andy Dalton. Ezekiel Elliott's had fumble problems. He's had problems running the ball. He did this last week. And I think this Washington defense is even better than Arizona. I think you're out of your mind. I think Washington wins this game.
Now, Washington defense had some issues the past couple of weeks. I mean, they haven't gotten as many sacks as they did.
Yeah, but you know
really
what?
hot at the beginning of the year. They slowed down.
You know why there's not going to be as many issues this time?
Why?
Because they're playing the Dallas Cowboys offense.
That's true. I mean, it opens up a lot of possibilities.
The offensive line is terrible. I like Andy Dalton. I don't think it matters who the quarterback is. The Cowboys are losing this game. Next up, the Bills are playing the Jets. I'm one of the few that's not worried about Josh Allen. He's played better than the numbers show the last 2 weeks, but he hasn't. It wouldn't take much to play better than the numbers show. I am more worried about the Bills' defense, but I'm not worried about it here because they're playing the Jets. I'm going with the Bills.
Yeah, this is an easy one. You got to go with the Bills. I mean, the Jets are getting Sam Darnold back, so no more Joe Flacco. But at the same point, Darnold's missed a couple weeks. Maybe it takes a little bit to get used to get back into the swing of things. The Jets don't have a great offensive line. They don't have a great defense outside of Quinn Williams and Marcus May. They don't really have any star defensive players. So I'm taking the Bills here pretty easily.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any team that I would pick the Jets to beat right now. Next up, a big matchup. Carolina Panthers 3-3 against the New Orleans Saints, who are 3-2. And whether Michael Thomas returns or not this week, I think the Saints have showed promising signs before the bye week. Their defensive line is healthier and more disrupted than it has been all season after the return of Marcus Davenport. Emmanuel Sanders has emerged as an every-week threat out wide. I'm really curious to see how former New Orleans assistant Joe Brady, now running Carolina's offense, attacks the Saints. And I think this is a closer game than what a lot of people think it'll be.
No, I agree with you. And Teddy Bridgewater, let's not overlook the fact that he was just in New Orleans this past year. He's been there recently. So he might have an idea of who he's going up against, what he's going up against. It's going to be a close game. And you know what? I didn't pick any upsets last week, and I had a really bad week. So I'm going to pick an upset here. I'm going to take the Panthers.
All right, I think you picked the wrong upset here. I think this. What a team like the Panthers needs to win with scheme and coaching because their players aren't as talented. It's hard to pick them to win. I think the Saints are coming off a bye week. I think the Saints get the win here, Sam.
I understand that. I just got to take a couple shots here, Mike, so otherwise I'm not going to be able to beat you.
Well, you're not going to be able to beat me anyways. Next up, the Green Bay Packers will play the Houston Texans. Which defense do you trust more here? Despite superior depth on the defensive line, the Packers are ranked 30th in, DVOA. I don't even know what the hell that is, but it was on the stat line. And that's 3 spots behind the Texans. I think the Packers pass rusher Preston Smith is not making much of an impact. Safety Adrian Amos is being exposed in coverage. And I just don't think Mike Pettine's a very good defensive coordinator. He wasn't a very good head coach. And I think this sets up beautifully for Deshaun Watson to have a huge week. And I think the Packers will win this game, but I think only by a field goal. I think this is going to be really similar to what we saw with the Texans against the Titans last week, where Deshaun Watson is good enough to keep him in the game, but he's not good enough to win at the in the end. And the Packers need a win here because they got humiliated last week.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to lose 2 games in a row, especially when you go from Tampa Bay, that probably has a top 5 defensive front, and Tom Brady, some of the best weapons in the game right now, to Houston, where it's basically Deshaun Watson carrying that team. I'd say I'm going with Green Bay all the way here. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to allow this to happen 2 weeks in a row.
All right, the Cleveland Browns versus the Cincinnati Bengals in the rematch of the Battle of Ohio. The first game was 35-30. Joe Burrow played really well, but Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt ran all over the Bengals defense. I think the Browns have an edge when it comes to their offensive line, running game, and coaching staff. But I think if I'm a Cleveland fan, I'd be a little bit nervous about this game, Sam.
Yeah, I would too, because you already mentioned the first game of the year was much closer for that between these two teams. And I would think Joe Burrow has learned something between now and then, or between then and now. He's going to probably progress a little bit. My one question to you, though, is Joe Mixon got ruled out for this game. I mean, how much of an impact is that going to have on Cincinnati's offense?
I don't think it's as much as people think. I think Gio Bernard has been pretty much ignored in this Bengal offense for the last 2 years under Zach Taylor. I think he's good enough to get the job done. And when I look at that, I'm still picking the Browns just because I think that the Bengals have pathetic coaching. Their offensive line is even worse than the Browns. Defensively, both teams suck. I think Joe Burrow is good enough to keep this game close and interesting, but I'm going to go with Cleveland in a close one.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game at least through halftime. But I'm going to go Cleveland as well, just because I learned not to pick the Bengals after picking them, I believe, the first 2 weeks in a row.
All right, next up, Atlanta and Detroit. And good luck figuring out either one of these teams, and good luck to the squad that enters the fourth quarter with a lead on Sunday. Both the Lions and Falcons were their best selves in blowout wins last week. A reminder for Atlanta that availability matters. It turns out that getting Julio Jones reinserted into the lineup helps. Detroit played swarming defense coming out of its bye week, but the surprisingly consistent play from quarterback Matt Stafford has me spooked. I mean, he actually played pretty well last game. Raheem Morris is the coach of the Falcons. I don't even really know what to think about this game, Sam.
I'm right there with you. I think I could see either team winning this game. I could see it honestly being a blowout either way because of how these teams have performed recently. But having Julio Jones back and seeing what he and Calvin Ridley and Matt Ryan did this past weekend to Minnesota, I'm not picking against Atlanta. I know they've been inconsistent the entire year. They could turn around and just, like I said, fall flat on their faces against Detroit. But I believe they have more weapons right now. I think they're going to pull out and win this game.
All right, next up, the Tampa Bay. I got to pick the game, don't I?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Atlanta. I'm going to go with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will face the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, the bad thing here is we got these little things that show what we're talking about, and I forgot all about them.
Yeah, I know. That's why I started pulling it up halfway through the show because I'm like, oh, wait, I see these on the side there.
And you haven't pulled them up yet because I still had to
I was pulling them up. It's right there. You see it?
Yeah, I do now. I just pulled it up after I tried to pull it up, and it took it down because you pulled it up. All right, we are going Bucs Raiders, and I think this is a matchup between two of the most improved teams. I think both of them should make the playoffs. I think the Bucs pass rush will be tested against a good Raiders offensive line. I think Derek Carr's played well this year. They beat Kansas City in Kansas City. What do you think, Sam?
I think this game is going to be closer than the Green Bay game from this past week. We see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been a little bit up and down. They had difficulties against Chicago, but that was mostly because Chicago's defense is so good. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers here, but I think this is going to be a really close game. I think this will be much closer than people anticipate. And Derek Carr is going to play well despite having to face the pressure. He has had fumbling issues, though. So that's probably the biggest thing I would worry about looking at this game is how many fumbles will Derek Carr have. I'm still taking Tampa Bay, but I believe it will be a close game.
All right. I'm going to show you how to pick an upset, Sam. I'm going to take the Raiders in this game.
There you go.
I think the Bucs are coming off a huge win against the Packers. They're coming all the way to the other side of the world to play Las Vegas. I think the biggest mismatch here is Tampa Bay's offensive line against Las Vegas's D-line, which should allow Tom Brady plenty of time to find open receivers. But I think Derek Carr is going to have a huge day here. I think Henry Ruggs will get deep a couple times. I like the Bucs to beat the Raiders, something like 30-27.
Are you taking the Bucs or the Raiders?
I'm taking the Raiders.
Okay.
The Bucs 30-27.
Gotcha.
You're just trying to confuse me now.
Hey, don't I always?
It doesn't take that much. But Next up, we have a classic matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Chargers. Sam, who do you like here?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers here. I expect Justin Herbert's finally going to pick up his first win as a starting quarterback. I mean, he's been playing fairly well this year. This is the kind of game where we could see a letdown potentially. We could see him struggle against a weaker opponent. We've seen rookies have those kind of issues in the past. But I'm going to go with the idea that Justin Herbert is the guy. He is the future. I believe he will play well, and I believe the Chargers are going to win this game fairly easily.
Yeah, I like the Chargers here. The Jaguars are terrible. The only way they got a shot is if they play the Jets. Next up, we have a very interesting matchup. Jimmy Garoppolo goes back to New England to do battle with Bill Belichick. What do you think, Sam?
You know what? If Garoppolo is anything like what we saw this past weekend, to me, it's actually a pretty easy pick. I'll take the 49ers here. I know I hate picking against Bill Belichick just because of how many times I've done it in the past. It never seems to work out. But really, from watching the quarterback play against the Denver Broncos, I can't put any faith in Cam Newton and Brian Hoyer and just them. I don't have faith in that offense right now to be able to score more than 19 points. So I'm going to take the 49ers. I just believe that they'll be able to just outscore them, even if they don't have a strong defense anymore. I think the 49ers have enough.
All right. I don't know. I'm going to go with Bill Belichick. You know, I think Kyle Shanahan is hesitant to call plays that require Jimmy Garoppolo to throw the ball beyond the line of scrimmage. I think this is a battle of running games and defense. And I think the slight edge goes to the team with the running quarterback and the superior secondary and Bill Belichick. So I'm going to go with the Patriots to win this game, Sam.
I understand where you're coming from. I just don't think that quarterback, Cam Newton, is going to be able to put up what you need to win the game. I know he might run for 70 yards. He did last week against Denver, but he threw the ball terribly. I believe he had a fumble, 2 interceptions. If he's going to put up that kind of production, you're not going to win this game.
I think you're desperately trying to find a reason not to pick the Patriots in this game. I think it's going to bite you in the ass. And next week, when we're talking about who won the week, you're going to bring this game up.
Probably. I mean, look, Mike, this has happened a couple times already this year. You know how this goes.
Hell, I just got a friend request from Bill O'Brien on Facebook.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Is he looking for a job? He's trying to get on the show?
I don't know. It's actually Bill O'Brien. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs against the Denver Broncos. I think this is a dangerous matchup for the Chiefs. Their most convincing wins this season have been followed by letdowns. Vic Fangio has an underrated defense, will make it tougher for Patrick Mahomes to convert third and longs. Can't you feel the upset here, Sam?
No, I cannot feel the upset here. I can't. Look, the Broncos beat New England last week. New England's offense is nowhere near close to what Kansas City has right now. I think the Chiefs are in a much better shape, obviously. Denver's defense, if they play like they did this past week, they'll keep the game close, at least for the first half. But the offense is so bad with Drew Lock, there's no way they can keep up with Kansas City.
All right, I agree. I was just trying to get you to pick them. So next up, Seattle and Arizona. The Cardinals have faced the fourth easiest schedule in the league thus far, according to the Football Outsiders. And this week will begin to test their staying power. Their scheme has covered up talent shortcomings on the offensive line with their pass rush, especially now that Chandler Jones is out. The Cardinals' running game figures to keep it going against Seattle. I just don't see Kyler Murray pulling this off. I really want to pick Arizona in this game just because Seattle's defense is limited. But I worry about the Cardinals' outside cornerbacks holding up against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I think the Seahawks win another shootout.
You know, I'm right there with you, but I'm going to lean towards Arizona. It's not because of Kyler Murray. It's nothing to do with Kyler Murray to me. It's just from the way these teams have played in the past. Arizona, I believe, upset Seattle late last season. The Cardinals have always played the Seahawks fairly close recently. And in this division in the NFC West, these teams, for whatever reason, seem to play each other close, even when there's a huge talent gap. And I believe there is a huge gap between Seattle and Arizona right now. But I think the Cardinals, with everything working out the way it is, I think the Cardinals are just primed for an upset. It doesn't have anything to do with Kyler Murray to me. It's just the timing of things.
All right. So you really want to lose this week, huh?
I'm really trying my best here, Mike.
To what? To lose?
Hey, look, if I win, I'm going to win big. If I lose, I'm going to lose big.
Yeah. You're going to lose big, Sam. You're really going to lose big. It's just the way it is. That's how it works out every week anyways. All right. Minnesota Viking great Matt Blair died at the age of 70 yesterday. What do you know about Matt Blair, Sam?
Not much, I'll be honest.
He was a 6-time Pro Bowler, played in 2 Super Bowls. He died at the age of 70 because of CTE. The reason I bring this up is the fact that I got to interview. He was one of the first interviews that I did for the NFL Legends show with The Grueling Truth. This would have been back in 2015. And I talked to him off and on for about the next year. And then he sent me a message wanting to be on the show again. And then I got a call from his wife. And, you know, his wife basically said he was showing early signs of dementia. She didn't know if it was a good idea for him to do the show or not. And I remember him coming on the show. And there was another linebacker that had played with Matt Blair on the Minnesota Vikings that had recently died back in 2015 of CTE. And my point is Matt Blair was a hell of a guy. Matt Blair is why I love NFL players and I hate NFL owners, because the way he was treated at the end of his life was repugnant. And this is a guy who was extremely talented. I remember after I interviewed him, he asked me for my address, and he sent me a couple big signed pictures. I don't know. There's one of them up here of him blocking a kick in an NFL game. And then with that, he sent me these postcards that he'd drawn himself. And he was a really talented artist. And I know from talking to other guys that have played for the Vikings, whenever the Vikings had anything with older players for the fans, Matt Blair was always the first guy to be there to talk to the fans. And he was a really good guy, and he's a huge loss for the Minnesota Vikings and for the state of Minnesota. I just wanted to bring that up because he was a 6-time Pro Bowler. He's in the Vikings Ring of Honor. And more than that, he was just a great guy.
When Gale Sayers passed away, didn't you say that you were trying to get him on the show and that his wife had him calling and saying that he probably wouldn't be able to do it?
Yeah, and I've had a lot of players that have had these problems. I mean, I've had a lot of guys that I interviewed 5 or 6 years ago that at the time, you could tell with Matt Blair, he even knew at the time when we did the interview, because we talked before the interview, and he's like, well, we can't set this up like a week ahead of time. He said, when I wake up and I feel good, I'll call you and we'll do the interview. He said, because then I can remember things. And then he also told me once we get about a half hour or so in the interview, he said, if I have difficulties, just cut it off. And at about the 40-minute mark, you could see that he was starting to have some problems. We wrapped it up there, but he was a great guy. I'm going to repost the interview sometime this weekend, maybe even today. But his story is worth being told. Like I said, he was one of the greatest linebackers in the history of the Minnesota Vikings, which is saying a lot because, I mean, the Purple People Leaders, and he played in 2 Super Bowls for the Vikings. I think he played in Super Bowl 11, lost to the Raiders. Super Bowl 9 against the Steelers.
That's where I know him from. Okay, I've heard the name. I didn't know what position it was, but I heard the name before. I was trying to place it when you were talking about it, but
yeah, and you could make a case that he is possibly one of the top 3 or 4 special teams players in NFL history. I mean, the guy did just about everything. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because he was a hell of a guy.
Could you make an argument that he is the best Vikings linebacker in history?
He would be the top 3 or 4, I think. And, I mean, when you throw in the special teams, it would be hard to top him, I think. I mean, the guy was a great football player. And the sad thing is, for the most part, unless you're old like me, you don't have a clue who he was. I mean, if you talk Viking linebackers and, you know, you're 10 or 15 years younger than me, you're thinking of guys like Scott Studwell. But he was a 6-time Pro Bowler. He played at, I think it was Iowa State after playing at a JUCO. And he was just a great player. He appeared in 2 Super Bowls, the Steelers and the Raiders. And, you know, I think what it was, they brought him in, didn't think he would start his first year. The Vikings had I think it was Roy Winston, who was a linebacker. And, the thing that stands out most to me about him is Super Bowl IX, I think it was. The Steelers punter was Bobby Walden. And Matt Blair blocked the punt by Bobby Walden. It was recovered by, I think, Terry Brown in the end zone. And it was the Vikings' only points all day, pretty much, as they missed the extra point. So the touchdown was because of Matt Blair. And he was a vital part in 1976 when they went 11-2-1. They gave up the second fewest points in NFL history at that point at 176, only 12 points a game. And in particular, Blair, what he was most proud of was the special team stuff. He recovered 5 fumbles, and he intercepted 2 passes from a linebacker position. And this was just in 1976. And the other linebackers, I think, were Jeff Seaman. And that's a funny-ass name, by the way, but I'm not going to laugh at it right now. And Wally Hilgenberg, who was on the opposite side. The Vikings beat the Rams in the NFC Championship game that year. And in the championship game, Blair recovered 2 fumbles. And, I know in 2015, he knew that he had signs of early dementia. I mean, he even brought it up. And he was told that by a neurosurgeon at about the time I interviewed him that he had chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, which is a degenerative brain disease linked to concussions. And, I haven't seen anything saying the cause of death. I didn't see it yesterday, at least when I looked it up. But I'm pretty sure it's from dementia. Even if he got to COVID, it was from dementia.
Yeah. I mean, it's 5 years ago, and he was already diagnosed with this. You have to assume that 5 years, 70 years old, former football player, probably.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better. But I just wanted to bring it up because he was a great football player, but he was a great guy on top of that. Our condolences go out to his family and basically everybody in Skull Nation. Isn't that what they call it? Skull? S-K-O-L. I don't know why they shoot that stuff, but I know what it means, by the way. But, all right, Sam will be back Monday to see who won and to preview a very interesting Monday Night Football game in L.A. between the Rams and the Bears. Which, if the Bears get this one, you really got to start to take them serious.
Yeah, I know. If they do this one, next time the NFL Power Rankings come out, I mean, depending on who does it, you or me, I would assume they'll be top 7 at least, I would assume.
Yeah, I'll just let you do it so I can rag on you the next day on the show. You can follow me at Grueling Truth. You can follow Sam Teets at SamTeets33. Make sure you check out Manscaped, promo code TGT20. Sam's worried I'm going to say something off color right now. But I'm not, Sam. I'm not going to say anything about how Manscaped can make your balls very happy. Also, check out Care and Technology at our rcandt.com, especially the PEMF machine. But for now, for Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening and watching to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.